What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of FitBizU. I'm your host, Jill Coleman. And today we are going to talk about trends for 2026. And I don't know if I've done this before where I'm like forecasting what's in, what's out, but I do want to do this because, y'all, I have not been this excited for the online space in probably about 5 or 6 years. The pandemic was like a weird time because for a lot of people, it was obviously a terrible time. We lost a lot of loved ones. People got really sick. There was a ton of just political unrest, all the things that happened in 2020. Oddly, the online space was really good for a lot of people because as a business coach, obviously a lot of personal trainers came online. They were looking for how to build their online business. And a lot of online coaches, a lot of in-person coaches and personal trainers and fitness instructors started their online business and had a lot of fast success. So that was like 5 or 6 years ago. That was a weird time. 2021 for me was a really big year. I brought on team for the first time, scaled the business, et cetera, et cetera. And we've sort of been in a rinse and repeat pattern for the last five. Now, what I am excited about for 2026 is the barrier to entry has never been lower to get started online. If you're listening to this show and you're already started online, that's amazing. Some of you guys have already gone through something like FBA, which is my beginner to online business program, stands for Fitness Business Accelerator. If you are listening to the show or you're new to the show and you're not sure or you're not familiar with what FBA is, it is my like very, very beginner get started here, just wanting to become or in the beginning stages of being an online coach and having your online business. We're going to be launching an opening enrollment next month. You can go ahead and get on the interest list. It's in the show notes. It's what is it? jillfitfree.com/FBA waitlist. There's no obligation to be on the list, but y'all, if you have been thinking, and I just put a question box up the other day on social media, and someone literally asked this question, and this is going to be another episode, but she said, how do I get out of unstuck mode and just do the thing that I want to do? And I followed up and actually had some clarifying questions for her. And I said, are you talking about you want to start your business, but you're not sure? Like you have it in your mind, like, I want to do this thing. What I am seeing, this can be a separate episode. What I am seeing is a lot, and I've just been seeing this more and more that we've done launches for FBA, especially the last few launches. A lot of people in the business space or online coaches or online coaching hopefuls, I'll call them, are having an all or nothing mindset around business. What I mean by that is when I say all or nothing, maybe you guys are familiar with that from like the fitness side or the nutrition side, someone who has to be completely on, super dieting strict, or they're completely off and they're kind of eating with abandon. That was certainly me for a long time. And so we think about all or nothing mindset. We think about that within the realm of something like fitness or nutrition. I'm going to start on Monday. I got to start January 1st. I need a start date, a stop date, whatever. Now, I am starting to see this in the business space. What I mean by that is I see a lot of people being like, I want to start my business, but and they're just making it into this massive undertaking as if there's going to be a ribbon cutting in the front of a storefront. And what I'm here to tell you, especially about 2026, is that the barrier to entry has never been lower and has never been easier to get started because you do not need a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff we're going to do today and some of the trends that I'm seeing and what's sort of in for 2026 makes me really excited because you do not need a professional setup. You do not need professional photos. You do not need a professional video editing team. You do not need a whole team of people to help you with copywriting and back end stuff and all this kind of stuff. You can do this stuff on your own. In fact, people are, and we'll talk about this in a second, people are really craving real, gritty vulnerability, relatability. And I think this is really, really awesome for people getting started because if you're just getting started, remember, that's the smallest your audience is ever going to be. So sometimes my students, my newer students will get down on themselves and they're like, well, I didn't get that many views or, no one saw it. And I'm like, okay, well, no one saw it. Then who cares? Like, right. Like just if no one is seeing your shit anyway, cause you're like, I don't really have that many people following me or I'm only getting, I don't know, dozens of views or maybe 100 or 2 views. Great. That's the best time to practice getting better at some of the business skills like talking on camera and some of the video editing stuff that might take you a little bit longer at the beginning, putting together reels, carousels, all the content creation, especially on social media that we're seeing right now, is very just DIY. That shit is homemade. And if you're sending it out to an editor or you're sending it out to a graphic designer, like honestly, those kinds of posts and videos are not doing as well. These very perfectly curated Canva, put together carousels are not doing well. People are just making carousels right on Instagram stories, saving them and posting them as a post. So, what I mean by that is if you are thinking about getting started, now is a great time, which is why I love that we're enrolling for FBA. Because if you're just someone who like is like, yes, I want to do this, but I need to know what the moving parts are. I don't really understand all of like when you say online coaching or online business, what does that include? What do I need to have ready? What does that cadence look like? Just how do things fit together? That's of course what we do in FBA. So, all of that to say, I am very excited because I feel like anyone can be successful. It doesn't matter how connected you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. You have the six pack, the perfect body, the perfect professional photos. You do not need a massive editing team or videographer or any of that stuff. Everything is more accessible than ever. It's a great time to get started. If you've been on the sidelines thinking about it, seeing people in your maybe in your immediate circle or inner circle going online. I get a lot of people referring out to me saying, so and so went through FBA. I'm interested because I've seen what they've done and I've seen how they've grown and I want to do something similar to them. And so chances are you guys know someone who's maybe already doing this. Maybe you're the go-to person in your friend group or your family that people ask questions about anyway. I work with a lot of physician assistant, nurses, people who are in within the healthcare system, but they really want to have something that's more around preventative medicine, wellness, longevity, fitness, nutrition. And really, you are the go to person within your friends and family circle already for this stuff. They already know that you are a geek out on it or you have had your own transformation. This is the best time to get started. So, anyway, all that to say, I'm excited to share today with you guys the ins and outs as I see it from my perspective, what we are looking at in 2026 and beyond. And also, if you are interested in getting started, there is no better place. It's the gold standard for those in the beginning stage of building their businesses. FBA, Fitness Business Accelerator. The link is in the show notes to get on the interest list. We're going to be opening enrollment here in a couple weeks. All right, let's get into this. So I'm going to share with you guys what is in and what is out. We'll go ahead and start with what is out. Okay. What is out? Now, I think you guys are going to breathe a big exhale when you hear me say a lot of these things. So, number one really has to do with accessibility. And I've talked about this before in other episodes where when I was kind of coming online and Twitter was kind of big back in like 2009, 2010, 2011, 12, I was on Twitter quite a bit. And I loved it because it felt like a smaller place for discussion. I actually met a lot of, colleagues and friends and peers on there. But I remember there were definitely a top layer of maybe gurus within the online fitness space. Some of these people wrote for T Nation. They were public speakers. Maybe they did have a podcast that early, whatever. And I remember reaching out to some of these folks. And of course, at the time, I was just getting started with JillFit, so I didn't have a massive following or anything like that. But you'd reach out to this person or you would just comment or reply to them and they would just not reply back. And you kind of just felt like, I don't know, to me, that felt really, I don't know, kind of gross. Because like, hey, bro, like you may, be a writer on some website, but that doesn't make you any better than anyone else. And so luckily all of that is kind of gone. But I do see sometimes where we see like us, and also maybe if you're listening to this, we have at times put these gurus on pedestals, right? We're like, oh, they know, or they're better than me, or whatever. Y'all, if someone is more successful than you online, it's probably just that they've been number one, doing it for longer. And number two, they've just made maybe riskier decisions than you. Or maybe they just had a little nest egg of cash that they could use to get started. Maybe they don't have kids, right? Like there's a million reasons why someone may be quote unquote ahead of you, but doesn't make them better than you. So I always want you guys to remember that any single person who has had success online started out the exact same way that you started out. No one comes online with subscribers, followers, right? Readers. No one comes online knowing how to do business. So don't make this a moral issue. Don't make it like, oh, that person is better or they know more than you. They probably have just been doing it longer than you. And so this idea of putting gurus up on pedestals and not realizing that these people are human too. You may just not see the behind the scenes sometimes, or you just see the highlight reel and you make it mean something about you. This goes together with, as a coach, as an online coach, one of the outs is being inaccessible or quote unquote above your followers. I don't even love the term followers. Like we have to use it because that's what you use on the platforms. But oftentimes I will say something like audience or connected folks or, I don't know, like I use the word audience quite a bit just because it's like, hey, these are the people I'm connected with. These are relationships that I built. Followers, even that word to me feels a little gross. I mean, I use it obviously because that's what we use on social, but really it doesn't, there's not like a moral high ground, right? That person who has a lot of followers isn't more evolved than you. They probably just have maybe taken a little more risk than you. Maybe they've just had the audacity to like just say fuck it and put themselves out there. And so all of that to say, the person who has the right to do it is the one doing it. So you might be sitting here and looking at people who are further ahead or more successful and going, what do they have that I don't? It's probably not that they're smarter than you. It's probably not that they have more credentials or they're better looking or any of these other things that we make it. It's probably just because they had the audacity to fucking do it. And they had the desire to just say, well, I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. And so there is a little bit of courage. If anything, there's a little bit of courage or self-trust that maybe that person has. And there's no reason why you can't also have that. So this idea of putting people in gurus on pedestals, being inaccessible above your followers, we're going to really see a lot of maybe DMs is going to be really big. Kind of going shoulder to shoulder with clients is going to be really big. And that also goes with comparing yourself to other success or comparing yourself to people who are quote unquote further along, or even comparing your pace to someone else's. I know this is really hard, but the comparison trap is really big. And I do think that we're going to see people go at all different speeds. I follow this one gal on social and I really like her. She's cute. She's like 24 years old. Her name is Shelby Sapp, maybe. Shelby Sapp, over 1 million followers, does sales. She's very cute, young, and I just love following her. I mean, she she's kind of new. She has over 1 million followers. She's been in the space for a couple of years, growing very fast. But I love it because she's confident. She's out there. She's posting multiple times a day. She doesn't give a shit. She's like she has the confidence and the competency that I wish I had at 24. And so I think it's really, and I enjoy following her. And of course, I'm learning stuff from her as well. But I could look at someone like that and be like, she's so much further ahead, or she's so much younger than me and she's further along. And like, what was I doing at 24? I was making $23,000 a year. And like, we can make all these things. I think that we're going to have to drop the pretense of there's a certain pace that we should be at. I don't care if you've been doing online business for 10 years. And someone just came on last year and has made more money than you. Who cares? It doesn't make any difference. Or you came online and you were like, wow, I grew really fast. I have a client right now who came online like maybe 9 months ago and she's grown really fast. She's like going viral constantly. She has massive amounts of trust with her audience. And I could look at that and be like, God, I wish I grew that fast. It took me years to get to that number of followers. But you can't do that because everyone is running their own race. I think that comparing your pace or your success to someone else's is only going to drive you crazy. And it's funny because I don't ever see us comparing the other way. We always compare like that person up there. We never compare down. We're not like, oh, that person sucks. Look at how much better I am than that person. We do it in a way, maybe as women, to make ourselves feel bad. For whatever reason, we're looking for reasons to feel bad about ourselves, or we're looking for evidence that we're not good enough. And I just think that's part of maybe the human condition or the female condition or whatever it is. And I think it's bullshit. And I think it's time for us to call that out and to be like, you know what? As a woman, especially women over 40, over 50, starting our businesses, y'all, we have multiple different competing priorities. You cannot work at the same level that someone who's 22 is. You just can't. And you wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to. And so we have to remember to run our own race. Now, here's where things get really cool. Now, some of the outs are like overly or all professional photos all the time. Now, I do professional photos 4 times a year with my photographer, Vio. She's amazing. But we aren't really using those photos online. If we do, we're maybe putting them in the background of a carousel or something like that. We're putting them on sales page. We're putting them on opt-ins. We're putting on ads. But we're not putting them as like standalone posts anymore. This is not 2018 where everything had to be like magazine perfect and filtered and, flawless and whatever. It's not doing well. And that's good for us. That means you don't need to be spending thousands of dollars on professional photos. You can get your boyfriend, your friend, your husband, your, a colleague, a neighbor to take candids of you. And those are going to do a lot better. So no professional photos. And also like no sort of like cold DMing, sales scripts. I saw there's this ad that's going around right now that I keep seeing, and she keeps saying, don't nurture your people. And I understand what she's saying. She's basically saying like, look, sometimes if you're trying to nurture, quote, nurture people, you're just going to create like an audience of freeloaders, people who just want free stuff. I think that's ridiculous. I think most people would part with their dollars if they felt the value of something. I don't think people are inherently cheap. I don't think people are inherently trying to take advantage. I don't think people are inherently freeloaders. I think if you have a lot of people who do a lot of free stuff with you that don't buy, it's because your messaging's not good enough yet. And that's fine. That's a skill, obviously. So I don't love that because at the end of the day, that is what we're doing. We're creating a personal brand of folks that we connect with, human to human. It's basically an audience of relationships. I go back and the forth and with DMs every single day with people who I know online. Whether I follow them, they follow me, whatever, like we're having back and forth. So the idea that I'm going to cut off that relationship or stop DMing because I'm being too accessible feels gross to me. And also, I don't want this like level of exclusivity. Like you have to get behind a velvet rope to talk to me. It's like, no, I trust myself that if you really need help to send you to a sales page, I trust myself. I'm not going to get caught up, DMing people and coaching people for free, but I am going to go back and forth with someone because it's human to human connection. And so what is out is this idea of like not nurturing your people, being inaccessible, being exclusive, staying up here while your peasants are down below. All of this stuff, as you guys, as I'm saying it, I'm sure you're like, yeah, you're wrinkling your nose. This is definitely gross. So let's get into messaging and product development. Some of the things that are not going to do, when I say out, I mean they're just not going to do as well, is vague general language, vanilla messaging on social media. So, for example, if you're just doing, I've talked about this before, like expert content, 3 ways to, or 5 reasons why. It's not that this content isn't valuable. And I'm a big fan of what we call solutions posts because at the end of the day, people need to know that you know your shit. But if you are just trying to be vanilla and you don't have any personality about you and you are doing just very general language, like I'll give you guys an example of a general post. A general post would be like 3 reasons why you should increase your protein intake. Like I'm literally yawning. Like it's not that it's not valuable. I'm sure someone could get some value out of that or learn something new. It's just number one, people already know they need to be eating protein, right? So it's like, all right, tell me something I don't know. And information, quote, information is not transformation. Information does not provide implementation or transformation or integration. And so, what is going to be more compelling is something instead like um, the 3-step process I used to double my protein intake as a woman in her 40s experiencing perimenopause symptoms. So notice how you're still teaching the same thing, right? The 3 steps to whatever, to increasing your protein or doubling your protein, but I added quantifiable. Like I said, double your protein instead of increase your protein, right? Makes it more quantifiable, less vague. I also said, as a woman in my mid 40s with perimenopause symptoms, this is so much more specific. It's so much more tangible. And it's speaking to a direct person, someone like me who is in their mid 40s experiencing perimenopause symptoms. So it's calling out the identifier, right? It's calling out the person who is qualified to read this, or it's for. It's not general, it's not vague. Now, that's a little bit different than vanilla. Vanilla is a little bit like just trying to keep the peace, right? Just trying to stay a little bit watered down. And you can feel this when you post vanilla shit. I do too. Sometimes I just fucking phone it in. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired today. I just need to I get something up. I don't have any ideas. Cool. It's just a vanilla post. It's just to get something up. Sometimes we just do that. It's fine. But other times, when maybe you do have a hot take on something, or maybe you are like, oh, I'm just feeling a little way. Maybe you just got off the phone with a client and the client is stressing over something that you're just like, God, this is not a big deal. And you have this feeling inside of you that you just want to like yell something from the rooftops, but you're scared because you go, if I say it how I really want to fucking say it, then people ain't going to like it. Or it's going to be too much, or it's going to be too spicy, or it's going to be a little polarizing, but yet you would maybe say it to your best friend, right? You maybe say it to your partner. Maybe you say it to your husband. Maybe you would tell someone you felt close to. But for whatever reason, when it comes to online, we're like, I can't stir the pot. Problem is that if you don't stir the pot, then you ain't gonna grow at all. And so it's not that you need to be intentionally polarizing, like, let me make up something. I don't want to be clickbaity just for the sake of being clickbaity. There's plenty of bots doing that. But what I do mean is if you do have a hot take on something that has a little bit of edge, then you have to post it. And for me, especially going into 2026, I'm actually just going to let it rip a little bit. I've talked about this in the Best Life podcast with Danny J. We talked about what we were bringing in 2026. And this is definitely a hot take for me is like, yes, I am. And if you coach with me, you kind of know because I'm a little bit more direct and to the point with my coaching. But I'm going to start being a little bit spicier, I would say, in my social, not as a hack or a gimmick, just because I really do have some things I want to say. And without saying them in the way that I want to say them, they come out a little bit vanilla. And it's fine. People be like, oh, yeah, I agree with that. Right. But it's never like, hell yeah or hell no. And we want one of those two responses. And so this is getting over sort of the vanilla language, but also not being vague in general with your messaging, instead being direct, quantifiable, specific and tangible. If you work with me in FBA, you hear me say all the time that your messaging needs to be more specific, more tangible, more quantifiable. We talk about the camera scenario, like all of these ways to connect with your ideal client in a much more specific way. The other part of messaging or product development that we are seeing is things like massive courses that try to teach every single thing like an A to Z course. These things are going to be out because they're hard to message and they're hard to market in a more saturated marketplace. So for example, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you could be like macro 101 or macros A to Z or nutrition 101 and like healthy lifestyle. These things will not sell because people don't know what exact problem it is solving. And I see this a lot with my newer students when they create a course or their very first program is they'll want to put everything in it because they want to make sure there's no stone unturned. They want to make sure there's enough nuance. They want to make sure like, hey, well, what if this and this person might do this and whatever. And we put a lot of asterisks in something. And before you know it, you look up and it's like this big, robust course that took you 6 months to create and you don't even know if anyone wants it. And the problem with this is number one, you're going to be creating a lot of courses, right? You're going to create a lot of stuff online. Don't make the mistake of thinking this is the only time you can teach this thing. I've created probably over the years, I don't know, dozens, if not hundreds of mini courses and free shit and whatever. What instead, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the ins, creating a course that is one solution to one problem. Bought this course, or I didn't buy this course. I saw this ad, and I thought it was a really great ad last year from a colleague of mine. And it was a course on how to get your audience to talk back to you. I thought that was genius. It was so simple, but she had been listening to her people. She'd been doing market research with her audience. And like a lot of them were like, I just have crickets. Like no one is saying anything. No one's in my DMs. I don't wake up to DMs. No one's responding to my stories. And the course was how to get your audience to talk back to you. And I was like, this is genius. I'm sure it was like 47 or 97 or 37 or something like that. It wasn't a super high ticket offer, but it was a first offer. And I thought this was great because it was like, okay, let me get a first dollar from somebody to solve a very specific problem they're having. One solution to one specific known problem. And then from there, you can upsell people into your bigger shit or your high ticket coaching, or whatever it is. And so massive courses that try to be robust and are general are just going to be so hard to market because you don't even know exactly what you're selling. You're like, it's A to Z. It's like almost trying to sell an encyclopedia, right? It's like everything you ever wanted to know about the world. It's like, that's such a hard thing to market. Someone goes, yeah, I don't know if that's for me. That's just too much. And also, sometimes when you have too many modules and too many things and too many videos, it can actually be a negative. So what I mean by that is if I see a sales page that's like, this is a 16 module course with, I don't know, 400 hours of video tutorials, I'm like, whoa, it's not, that shit ain't, I'm not going to be getting to that. So sometimes we think more is better, but when we're marketing something and we're like, it's huge and there's so many modules and so many videos and you have access to these like PDFs and whatever, it's too big. Someone goes, wow, that's a lot. And also, the idea of doing that with the crazy life that I have right now is just not doable. And so don't always assume that more or bigger is better. More robust ain't better. It's going to be way harder to sell. Lastly, I will say we need to bring personality back, y'all. One of the outs is very impersonal copy and just blatantly AI written slop. Like we can tell if it's AI, we can tell. I know you can train these GPTs and whatever to write like you, but chances are they're going to continue to write almost like a term paper, and it'd be a little bit hard for someone to feel connected to something that does kind of sound like a robot. You can kind of, especially if you're used to using a ChatGPT or a Claude or whatever, you can kind of pick up on the cadence. You can kind of pick up on the writing style. And I really think that the people who are going to stand out are going to have more personality in their copy. They're going to have more personality. This is why something like a Substack, I know a lot of people use AI to write their Substacks, but I think this is why something like a Substack, that's kind of like a personal journal. A lot of people are using it as like a personal journal. I've seen many bloggers have their blogs, but because they rely so heavily on SEO on their main websites, they're now starting Substacks for like all the miscellaneous just shit they want to talk about, but quote, can't talk about on their website because their website needs to be optimized for SEO. They have to have certain keywords that they always hit and blah, blah, blah. And so they're using Substack as like an online journal just to be a little bit more free and a little bit more, inject a little more personality into their content. And so I do think that things like talking head videos, storytelling, this can't be created by AI, right? If you're injecting your personality or telling stories face to camera, like this is not going to be AI generated. Now, I know there's videos that can be AI generated, whatever, but we can kind of tell. And so I do think that we're going to want to bring back personality. I'm kind of laughing, but I'm like, yeah, bring back personality. I think AI is going to get worse before it gets better. I think it does have many uses, but I think if you're trying to use it to create all of your content when you don't even know your own voice yet, you're going to be in big trouble. Okay. All right. So those are the outs. Let's get into the ins. A lot of the ins are just the opposite of the things that I just talked about. But number one, pulling back the curtain and showing the behind the scenes of your life and of your business and what you're doing. And I've talked about this now for, gosh, it's been months now. We've been talking about this idea of personal brand, this idea of vulnerability, relatability. I do think these things are here to stay, even more so. I've shared a lot about sort of the iterations that I've been in social media and how things have changed quite a bit. And the good news is that people are really looking for like in the moment stories, DMs, carousels, genuine connections with internet friends. I think that because so many people are now online a lot more, chronically online, a lot of our friendships are online friends. You know, if someone DMs me and we go back and forth, I'm like, yes, this is a connection. This is someone who if we live close together, we'd be friends. And so vulnerability, relatability, and pulling back the curtain, not only on your life, but also on your business. I think this is a really cool opportunity. I think sometimes we can be a little scared to talk about the back end of our business or what's going on in our business, because if it's not going well or we're having something that we're struggling with, we feel as though sharing it might undermine our credibility. I see this a lot with newer online business owners. If they put together their website, they'll use language like, we at JillFit do this. And I'm like, who's we? And they're like, well, no one, it's just me. But I'm using that to sound more professional. And I'm like, it actually sounds more impersonal. In fact, people are dying for uh, human to human connection, right? So if it's just you and you don't have a team, then you don't use we, you use I. I am this person. You write in first person. You don't say Jill Coleman is a, you know, master's in nutrition. Like you say, hey, I have a master's in nutrition. Hey, this is my transformation. Everything is first person, not third person. All of this is to create more human to human connection. And going along with that, candids, unfiltered photos, unedited photos, I think, and videos. These things are going to be really big and continue to get bigger in 2026. So I mentioned earlier in the show, Shelby Sapp, the sales gal I follow, and she's like just doing videos like all day, every day. Almost the things that you would maybe put in your stories a couple of years ago, she's putting on her main feed. And I think this is such a cool iteration because it is showing the behind the scenes. And I shared another episode recently. This is when like Facebook Live started becoming big, maybe 10 years ago, when people would go live on Facebook like every single day. It brought a realness that we hadn't seen before. So I can be doing an Instagram or Facebook Live on my couch, and like maybe my dog comes over and starts like nuzzling me, and like maybe the doorbell rings and like someone's at the front door, and like all these kind of just day-to-day things were starting to happen in lives, which made it a lot more watchable. It was kind of fun. It was like, oh, what's that? People were like looking in the background. Oh, where'd you get that couch? Or, oh, I like that picture in the background. Or you see your husband like walk back behind the video. All of that to say, this kind of day-to-day behind the scenes is becoming more normalized, and it's also what people are craving. So this idea that you're going to like rent out a beautiful studio with like the most perfect lighting and hair and makeup. Like that stuff is fine, but still people are looking for real. Do it to the point where like you feel confident enough. It doesn't have to be like, I don't need to roll out of bed and just like show up on social media. But I do think that maybe things, maybe 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you'd be putting on your stories, you can now are like good for main feed posts, especially because main feed is so random recently, especially on something like Instagram. It either goes viral or it just tanks. And so my whole thing is fuck it, just put whatever on Instagram main feed. People who follow you, some are seeing it, some are not. Or maybe try trial reels, right? Maybe throw up some stuff on trial reels. Why not? There's literally the risk is so low. It's the lowest it's ever been to try new things on social media. What is also in is building a personal brand to create what I consider to be an anti-fragile business. So a fragile business would be something that's like if I was just running an ad to a sales page, right? An ad directly to a sales page. That, in my opinion, is a little fragile because the sales page copy needs to work. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to make that sale happen, is if the sales page is perfect. The copy is perfect. The photos are perfect. The colors are perfect, right? Like, and some people do their business that way. I think if you have a personal brand, there are many different touch points, not just the sales page. Like I always tell my students, I'm like, yeah, sales pages matter, but they matter the least they've ever mattered because there's all these other touch points with you. They've been following you on social for months. They're getting your emails, right? Maybe they're on SMS lists. They're watching your stories. So yeah, does a sales page matter? Sure. But super fans are not even reading the sales page. You're just going, well, it's this person, it's Maestro. I just want the thing. And so when I say it's anti-fragile, I mean, because you have built that relationship will take care of a lot of the sale. So Ramit says, like, and gosh, he said this like 10 years ago, and I loved it. He said, um, he's like 90% of people will make their buying decision before they even hit the sales page. Meaning, if someone's already following you on social media, they've already been indoctrinated in your energy and your vibe and your expertise and your story and your transformation, all the things that you share, they already know if it's a yes for them or not, right? They're probably going to sales page to see how much it is. But for the most part, they're already bought in. So that to me is what I call an anti-fragile business. It's a business that if I want to make money this weekend, I know I can put an offer out and I'm going to make sales. That's anti-fragile. But you need a personal brand to do that because the personal brand is built on real relationships and trust building. All right. One other thing that I think is really cool is face to camera is going to be in teaching face to camera and also storytelling. So remember a couple of years ago when it was like B-roll and everyone's going viral with B-roll, and it was still like, hey, the first 3 seconds matter and you have to have a hook to grab someone's attention. All of that actually still stands. Now you can still do B-roll if you want, but even your face to camera videos need to have a hook. So you're calling out an identifier. You're saying like, hey, this is for you if you are a 45-year-old woman looking to lose 5 to 10 pounds in the next 90 days, right? You're hooking the person in. You're going fishing to find the right person. Or you might say something like, if I had a massive fat loss goal for 2026, here are the 3 things that I would be doing every single day, right? That's a hook. So it's basically like you're calling out the goal, or you're calling out the person, or you're calling out yourself and saying like, as a blah, blah, blah. So there still needs to be a hook when it comes to storytelling. So what I don't want is I want you guys showing up on video and being like, hey y'all, it's me. I just wanted to pop on here, right? We do that sometimes with stories. I'm definitely guilty of that too. I'm like, hey guys, it's me. I'm popping on, blah, blah. We have to get that out of the way, and you have to immediately start with some kind of identifier, hook, solution, call out the thing that the problem you're solving or the solution itself or the transformation or whatever it is needs to be called out first. So all that still stands, but storytelling is big. So for example, I don't know. I saw this, one of my colleagues, Stacy Tushel, had this video, and she said, I once fired somebody for wearing a hoodie to work. And I'm immediately hooked in, right? Because I'm our ideal client. She works with 7-figure business owners. And she's like, I once fired someone for wearing a hoodie. So she starts out with the story. That was the hook. Started out with a story. I think that reel ended up doing really well. She's shared it many times, but then she goes and she tells the story, and then she tells the business lesson behind the story. So you would do the same thing. You would start with I want to tell you guys about this one time where I ate soggy asparagus out of a plastic bag with my hands because I thought that's what you need to do to get lean. And if you've been to any of my webinars, you've maybe heard me tell this story before. So then I'll go into, and here's what I did. And then you tell the lesson behind it. Here's what I thought I had to do. Here's how things changed. Here's how my mindset shifted, whatever it is. Then you tell the lesson, but you start with the story. And the story is personal. It can also be a story about your client or a testimonial. But if you start with a story, it makes it personal. And if I make it personal, then someone is going to, then it's more universal. So the more specific the story, the more universal it tends to be. And so you want to tell story, you want to tell the story with specificity. So when I say like, hey, it was cold, soggy asparagus out of a plastic bag as I'm driving at 5 in the morning, it's pitch black. I'm literally using my hands to eat this asparagus. I'm sure right now you guys are picturing that in your head as you're listening to this. That's what storytelling is. It's creating an imaginary and a scenario that someone can picture in their head. This is what we call the camera scenario. And so that's how you tell a good story. I don't say something like, back when I was dieting, I used to eat asparagus. Right? No, I'm telling you the details. We're going into it so you can picture it vividly in your head. So you can use this as a hook when you're doing face to camera to get people to watch past that first 3 seconds, and then you teach on the back end. But this is how you start. This is how you make personal and how you pull someone in. I also think that low ticket is in. We talked about making your products and services to be one solution for one known problem. So these more niche products are doing well. But I also think that we are going to continue to see high ticket coaching doing well. Now, we can have a conversation around the economy and do people have money and things like that. Yes, we are seeing that people do have money and people want to spend it, but they want to spend it with someone who they feel can give them the attention and the concierge level of mentorship that they're looking for. So what I mean by that is people will pay high dollar for mentorship, meaning they want to grow like shoulder to shoulder with you, right? So like, hey, Jill, I would love to know what worked for you. Or, and I do think that we are going to see people, and I'm certainly doing this, reaching out and investing with folks whose life, success, revenue, business, whatever it is aspirational for me because I'm like, look, I can see where I'm going and I would like for you to open your playbook and show me what you do, whether it's your daily routine, whether it is, how you approach situations at work, maybe it's the conversations that you have, how you train your team, whatever it is in whatever industry you're in. But I do think that high ticket concierge / mentorship coaching containers are going to continue to do well. People will pay for more access. And then if they just have a quick problem or known issue that they want solved, we're looking at $37, $47, $97 mini solutions, mini courses. One solution to one known problem. Lastly, I think that it's more and more important that, and we're going to continue to see this, that you are going to be talking about your principles, your core values, and having lines in the sand. And, sort of the days of keeping politics 100% out of your business, I don't know that that's really possible. I think so many things that we do are political. It doesn't mean I need to be like, hey, you don't need to like share who you voted for if you don't feel comfortable doing that. But I do think that your followers and your audience needs to know where you fall on some of these issues. Something like health and fitness can have and does have a very political side to it. We talk about like food access and we talk about, who gets what and things like that. It doesn't mean that you have to completely change how you see things. But I think you and I would probably agree that something like fitness and wellness isn't just 100% about discipline and willpower and like, personal responsibility. It's like there are real factors out in the world that do affect how fit or healthy someone can be, whether that's even just how they grew up or the area they grew up or the parents they grew up with, right? It's the same thing in business. It's really easy, quote unquote, easy. I've talked about this a lot on the show is that I do have a lot of privilege. I grew up in a middle class, upper middle class family that wanted me to go to college. There was never an idea that I wouldn't go to college. It wasn't even a mentioned. And so I look back and I go, gosh, I really had a lot of, unearned advantage or a lot of privilege. Doesn't mean I did anything wrong. That was just the luck of the draw that I was able to be born into a family that prioritized education, going to school, wanted to help me go to school, supported me in my goals. Not everyone has that. not everyone has those same advantages. And acknowledging that doesn't mean anything. It just means like that's the situation that you're in. That's the situation we're all in. And so you don't have to, make your account on social media 100% about politics and go all in on all the political craziness that we see all the time. But you need to have some principles. Like for me, I'll give you guys an example. For me, I care about women. You guys know that. You've been here. I work with majority of women. It's not that I don't care about men who want to grow their business, and I certainly work with some, but at the end of the day, I want women to make a shitload of money. Like at the end of the day, when I look at my values and I look at the things that I care about, it is about women unapologetically getting money and having money, because for me, it has made such a difference in terms of options for me being able to leave my marriage. Like I have a lot of personal sort of stories around autonomy and things that I was able to do because I made my own money as a woman. And, if you're someone who shares your money with your husband or, boyfriend or whatever, that's your prerogative. And I love that you have figured out what works for you. But for me, if there is, and this is an example of how politics would play into my business, would be like, I will always support the candidate that supports women, always, right? Whatever that looks like, whether that's reproductive freedom or whether that is, freedom to, make their own money, have their own lives, have their own jobs, have their own accounts, have their own credit card, whatever it is, right? That will always be my value system. And so I like talking about that because I don't have to literally be like, here's what happened today in the news, but I can be like, you guys know, if you're here, I care about women having options. Because to me, when you have money, you have options, and options are power. That's why, and for me, my biggest value system is autonomy. I don't want to be told what to do, how to do it. I want to be a good person. I want to have my own principles. I want to have my own core values. I want to show up as a valuable person in society. And I think if you're listening to the show, you probably feel the same way. So you don't have to have the same politics I have. You don't have to have the same principles I have. You don't have to have the same core values I have. But I do think that more and more our audience are going to be asking about those things. Again, it doesn't mean you have to talk about politics. It just means that you maybe want to do a post on what your core values are. Hey, if you interact with JillFit, just so you know, these are the things we believe are important. You're listening to the show, and I'm communicating my values to you right now. My values are women, power to women, resources for women, right? And that doesn't mean I'm looking for a handout. I'm just like, I want women to make a shitload of money. Great. Awesome. That's why all of my programs do that. They give women, and men too, if they do the programs, they're going to get a result as well. But I care about women having their own money. And so this is me sharing that value. You could do that in whatever platform you wanted. And I think that over time, these kind of things that followers, customers, clients are going to want to align themselves with folks who have similar values. And I don't even think these have to be overt posts. If you wanted to, you could do an overt post. Here's my core values at JillFit. But I think it's just the undertone. It's what they see you doing. It's the examples that you're setting. I think without me even sharing that information with you on this podcast, you probably would understand that about me. If you listen to the show, you're like, yeah, Jill's fucking, she just wants women to crush. I'm like, yeah, you probably guessed that about me anyway. And so all of that to say, I think the way you show up informs your customers, informs your audience of the kind of person that you are. And then I think it's okay to say, here's my core values, here's my principles, here's the way that I live my life, whatever that is. I have plenty of clients that are religious and they share that as part of their, social media, and they share as part of their personal brand. Great. It's not for me, but it's for them, and it's great. And they find their people. There's enough room for everybody. You do not need to have my same values, but chances are you may be similar to my values because you're here. And if you are not similar in the values, then you're probably going to go somewhere else, and that's also great. It's a perfect system. So I do think that is really important as well. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. I really am excited about this. A lot of this comes down to personal brand. A lot of this comes down to pulling the curtain back on who you are as a person, unfiltered, unedited photos. Candids are up. You do not need to be a professional videographer. Face to camera is great. Tell me your stories. Does not have to be perfectly on brand every single time. The days of everything being super polished are over. They're on the way out, y'all. And I love this for us. I feel like this is a really cool opportunity, and I hope that you feel the same way. Good? All right. I know we went a little bit long today, but hopefully this was good listening to you. If you have any questions or anything you would love me to cover on the show, please send me back. You can always DM me at JillFit. And again, if you are not on the interest list for FBA and you are ready and 2026 is going to be your year, this is the best place to begin. Go to jillfitfree.com/FBA waitlist. All right, y'all. That's it. Have a great rest of your week and I'll see you soon.